Good afternoon, everybody. I am going to be presenting a talk I did at AI User Group for Developers a couple of weeks ago, because this was extremely last minute. Jackson asked me literally 5 minutes ago, so please bear with me as I try to present on the spot here. It's really a test of my job. But yeah, I'm excited to share a little bit about how to build a great UI from Canva's perspective on AI. So if you're not familiar with Canva, it's a design tool that you can utilize to create lots of assets from marketing materials to social media and more. This presentation actually is entirely done in Canva as well. And we have an app store that we launched last year to the public in June at our Canva developers event called Canva Extend, which is a sweatshirt I'm wearing. And since we've launched that app store, we've had over 100 apps, including over 50 of those being AI apps, live on our app store. And we've reviewed many, many, many more than that. So we've learned a lot of tips and tricks to make a really good UI experience for your AI app through our experience. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about how to build a great UI for your AI from a non-designer at a design-oriented company. So I'll give you some tips that we've learned from our experience. We'll then go ahead and try to live fix an app together, and then I'll show you some resources as well. So here are some of the things that we've learned as a company from reviewing lots and lots of AI apps from a lot of third-party AI developers out there. How many of you are an AI startup or starting out on your AI journey and trying to bring a product to market? A few of you? Okay. So this could be really helpful for you as you're continuing to develop that, or even if you already have a product, you might get some information here that could be beneficial for your product. So the first tip I want to look at, now you guys are actually designers this time. The developers had no idea what was wrong with these UIs when I tried this. For those designers in the room, any thoughts of what about this UI could be improved or isn't ideal? No? No? Okay, how many people are familiar with the Canva editor? Has everyone used Canva? A decent amount. Okay. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the Canva editor, this is a snapshot of the Canva side panel. So if I actually just zoom out for a second, it's that real estate here on that black side panel. Jump back right back in. So when we're talking about a limited amount of pixel width, we want to be really cognizant of how we're laying out that page to maximize the amount of user inputs we're able to accept. So by actually thinking about the vertical layout a little bit more, because we don't have the entire real estate of the screen here, we're actually able to get a lot more user input onto that page by better utilizing our vertical layout. So here, not only are we able to change how many inputs we have available for our users to select, we're also able to add additional ones, which means that a user no longer has to be a prompt engineering genius to be able to use our AI. We're able to make them select a couple of those beforehand so that they are getting a better result once they're creating it by really thinking about how we're using that real estate, laying it out a little bit better, and allowing users to select more options as opposed to forcing them to try to type it into their prompt. Our next tip is also about vertical layout. Any thoughts on what could be improved here? No? Okay, let's think about the button layout, right? The primary action that we want a user to do is to actually generate that image, actually use our technology. By putting the amount of credits you have, which really isn't a foundational component of your app, it's just letting users know what they can continue to do, we're taking it away and we're making users continue to have to scan the screen to try to find where that primary action is. Again, let's utilize that vertical real estate. If we don't need all of it, don't use all of it. Make sure that you focus in making sure that the primary action, your primary mode that you want a user to interact with your application is really easy to find and really obvious to be able to create a better app. Our third tip is, any ideas here? Around loading. How many people have seen a loading bar that just kind of sits at 5%? Now all of a sudden you jump up to 70%, and then you sit there a while, and then you jump up to 80%. It's really arbitrary. what does that actually mean to a user? It never actually is representative of the amount of time that it actually takes to load an image. So let's go ahead and remove those percentages. And let's also think about the loading experience. If your AI takes a while, that's okay, but don't let users think that they can change the input values while that information is loading. If all of these text boxes are enabled while my AI is actually loading, I, as a user, think, oh crap, maybe I can actually go ahead and change that input. I really didn't actually want an Australian accent. I wanted an English accent or an American accent. And then when the output comes back to me and doesn't have that change, I'm gonna be really confused. Remove all of those options to make sure that a user doesn't think that they can change during that loading experience of your AI, to make sure that they are getting an expected output from their inputs into your application. So for longer loading, we highly recommend offloading it to a different screen to enable users to understand kind of what's happening in the application. Also providing an option to cancel it if they realize they made a mistake and want to go back. This also will save you some GPU costs as well, because you're not going to be processing the entire request, only to have them try it again and try it again and try it again. Our next tip is around user input. How many text boxes do you see on this screen? Text inputs. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4, I see 4, 4, 4. You are wrong. There is one text input on here. So let's go ahead and clean that up and make it more obvious what actually is a text input for users. So those were actually just some pre-selected example text that we wanted to show users, because sometimes it's really helpful to provide them starting points for their text inputs. Let's go ahead and clean that up, make it more obvious what is actually a text input field, where the prompt is actually going, to allow them to make a proper selection and understand what they are selecting. So by changing the layout of our pre-selected options, it's more obvious that those are suggestions or helpful starter inputs and not actually text inputs that I can change. Additionally, with our language selection, we're going to go ahead and change that and make it a little bit more obvious what options there are for language. But let's look at that one a little bit more in detail. So if we go ahead and look at that expanded menu of languages that are available, there's a lot of choice here. Is that a really good user experience? Am I, as a user, going to be able to make a choice really easily, be able to find really easily the language or dialect that I'm looking for? Not necessarily. So by changing this around a little bit, enabling you to filter and sort and also search a little bit more obviously, it's going to be a much easier user experience, and I'm able to find what I'm looking for a lot faster, and I'm not going to get frustrated and give up. I'm actually going to be able to get to the point where I am going to be able to generate audio from this application as well. Also, by limiting the amount of selections that are available to a user at the very, very beginning, you're removing that paralysis of choice by making it really easy for them to go from 0 to 1. And then if they really want a specific language, then they can go ahead and search for it. But go with those most obvious choices or those most used choices, most popular choices, and only show those before showing everything that is available. Our next tip is around buttons. How many primary actions should be on one screen? 1. How many are on this screen? 2. So what do I do here? Is this a generation page, or is this a start a new or an add to a design page? Really focus in on highlighting what you want a user to do in this space. So once my image is already created, I really want a user to add that to a design. So that's gonna be my primary action. If I want a user to start over or recreate something, separate that out, make it really obvious what the primary action is that you want a user to do in that space. But if you want to keep those other options there, keep them separate, make sure it's obvious that this is going to be a net change and you're creating a net new design here as well. So always, always, always have just one primary action on a page. And the last tip I want to talk about is, anyone have any idea what this app does? No, neither did I when I saw it either. This is a caption generation app. Not obvious. So what we want to do is actually make it a little bit clearer what you can do with this app. You upload an image, and that image will return a caption. In this example, I uploaded an image of a cartoon a cartoon cat, and it's much more obvious that what was returned to me is a caption that I can now add to my design if I want to make my design more accessible. I'm also able to see the original image. My primary action is very clear about adding my caption to the design, and it's very obvious how to start over here as well. So by cleaning up these little things, it really makes your app so much more usable and so much more obvious to a user what they're supposed to be doing, what the intent of your app is, and what the value add of is. And all of these examples that I just showed you are actual apps from our app store in their before state. Then they go through our app review process, and then this is our end state. So we've really helped a lot of users improve their a lot of developers improve their app experience through our design review process and by providing them all of these tips that we have learned as a design company in our 10 years of experience and helping them apply it to their apps as well. And we've also heard from users that they've taken this and applied it back to their primary app. So they've gone back to their website or their app or their desktop app and modified it to be able to include all of these tips and tricks that they've learned from our app review process. Now with that, let's actually go ahead and try to fix the UI of an app. So I'm gonna have a fake text-to-image AI app. I actually haven't tested this today, so I have no idea if it's gonna work, so bear with me. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna create a really simple text-to-image app that takes a user input and returns an image that I can then use in my design. So I'm gonna go ahead and jump over here. Oops. All right, so I need to go back a little bit. I believe it's in projects. What's in here? Yes. Okay. Sorry. Again, I was asked to do this like 5 minutes before this started, so just need to get things up and running real fast. All right, so I'm gonna actually start at my local development environment. So this is actually gonna be starting the Canva Apps SDK Starter Kit. So this is what you could use if you were trying to build your app into Canva. And what this will do is it'll actually start my local server. And with my local server started, I can actually, go ahead and I'm gonna go to our Canva dev portal. And I can actually go ahead and start testing my app live inside of the Canva editor. So my app is running on my local server, and then this is a productive version of Canva, and my app's actually running inside of it right now. So in this case, I have a button, a text input field, and what it's supposed to do is generate an image for me from an inference model that I currently stole from Hugging Face and put up here. If I go ahead and generate image, oh, apparently I didn't undo all of the changes that Guys, this is what happens when you actually have to present on the spot here. Let's see, oh no, okay. What app is it running? Sorry, give me a second while I figure out what project I actually have running here. Yeah, it's already open. You know what I probably didn't do? Save my changes. Oops, there we go. Okay, cool. All right, I'm gonna rewind, back out some of those changes that I already made. And now, okay, let's go ahead and reload our app. So in this case, if I'm a text-to-image app and I want users to input a prompt and then generate a result. If I don't have any sort of indication about loading state, I'm just gonna slam that button as a user because I don't understand what's happening until I get a result. That's gonna run up your GPU charges immensely. You don't want a user kicking off multiple instances of your AI unless you really enjoy really high usage costs. Does anyone enjoy that? Probably not. So one of the really key things to do here is to make sure that button is disabled and in a loading state once a user presses it, so they know something has actually happened. Yeah, so now we're getting a couple images being generated because I just smashed that button and it doesn't really know what to do with that. So Canva, before I jump over there, Canva actually has a lot of UI components that we've created for you to make it really simple for you to build your app as well. So if I go ahead and look up a button in our storybook, I'll just go ahead and zoom in a little bit better. You can see we actually have a lot of properties already available from that button. So it's really, really easy for me to add the state of the button, add a loading action to the button, make sure that it's disabled, stretch it so it fits the entire screen. So a lot of this is going to be responsive out of the box. So then, as you saw what I did earlier, what we're going to go ahead and do is use that loading state. And we're going to check to see if the state, I forget what my state variable is called. Sorry, pause, please. Loading state is equal to loading. So by simply setting that property, using a little bit of React code, I'm able to then add that loading state. I'm going to go ahead and save my changes this time, go back to my app. And now when we click generate image, it will automatically add that loading state. So it's really obvious to a user that there is something happening. Please don't smash my button. Please don't run up my CPU charges. Please just wait for a response to come back from the AI. Now, the other thing that we might want to consider here too is making sure that we only show the image card once the image is available. So if we don't have the value of the sample URL, don't show that. So if you don't show any placeholders until it's absolutely necessary to show placeholders. So by just go ahead and heading and using our state and wrapping it in that, so we just want to make sure that loading state equals success in this case. And then we can go ahead and show our image card. Did I do something wrong? No, yeah. What did I do wrong? Oh. Y'all, I backed out all of the changes from the wrong example. My bad. Also, quotation marks are really critical here. So again, we're going to go ahead. I don't know. Anyone have a good prompt idea here? Okay, fine. Cat doing yoga. So we'll go ahead and generate an image. We only want to show that image card once that image is actually ready. We also can use, we have loading state indicators as well. So if I wanted to have like a placeholder image. Here we go, yeah. Sorry, loading. We have loading indicators. We have placeholder images. Oopsies. So you can also create like a loading state easily with our UI components to show a progress as well, that like we're trying to generate something, we're going to create it, and by using our progress or our placeholder images, you can also show kind of the shapes that are going to be coming down the line. And then once our image actually resolves, it'll actually show up in our side panel, and then we're really easily able to add it to our application just by clicking it. But another thing that you might want is to be able to drag that image onto that page. So with our image, oops, I keep going to the wrong place, guys, sorry. With our image cards, we're also able to add an on-drag start event as well, which enables us to really quickly add the ability to drag an image from the side panel into our image as well. So making sure that it's really obvious and consistent with the design experience throughout the application. So in Canva, when you go to add anything to a design, you can always expect to be able to drag and drop it onto the page. Making sure that it's a consistent experience, whether it's an app or even in your own application, and just making sure that it's a consistent experience of how users interact with elements and add them to your page or create designs, it's going to make it a lot simpler to create a good user experience where users want to continue to use your product. Also, I didn't practice this, so I have no idea how I am on time. Do I need to wrap up or? Okay, cool. Thank you guys for bearing with me as I present on the spot here. I'm just gonna wrap up real quickly and point you to some of the things that we helped use today. So our Apps SDK is what enables us to actually interact with the Canva canvas. So if you want to bring your AI tech into Canva, we have a lot of resources to help you actually interact with the different spaces within Canva. We have that UI kit as well, which is a lot of React pre-built components that are responsive to screen size, including mobile devices, because a lot of our Canva users actually are on mobile. And so this will provide you a lot of tools to help you get started building your UI even faster. We have plenty of guides, again, from our experience of building a design front-forward company. So we have plenty of design guides and common patterns that you will see. And then a little bit about our app review process. So you can learn a lot about how those apps actually went from the first page to that second page and improving their app experience. And you can always learn more at canva.dev. And I will also invite you, we are doing a workshop at 3 p.m. in workshop room 3, where we'll go over all of Canva's AI features, including our ChatGPT integration, the entire Magic Studio that we have embedded in Canva, and then also take a look at the Canva developer's experience a little bit more if you're interested in diving a little bit deeper on this and getting hands-on keyboard. Thank you guys all for bearing with me as I presented this super last minute. I appreciate it. And hopefully you learned a little something about UI today.